Am I the a-hole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed till my brother-in-law's daughters are out of my house? My brother-in-law Sammy lost his home shortly after his divorce 10 months ago. He moved in with us and brought his twin daughters, Olivia and Sloane, both 18, with him a couple of months ago. His sister, my wife, and I have one daughter, Zoe, 16, and she and her cousins aren't close but get along fine. Now, Olivia and Sloane have no respect for Zoe's privacy. None. They used to walk into her room and take everything they get their hands on. Makeup, phone accessories, clothes, school laptop, etc. Zoe complained a lot. And I've already asked the girls to respect Zoe's privacy and stop taking things. My wife and Sammy saw no issue with this. After all, they're girls, and this is typical teenage girls' behavior. But I completely disagreed. Last straw was when Zoe bought a $60 MAC makeup kit that looks like a paint set. That she saved up for over a month, and one of the girls, Sloane, took it without permission and ruined it by mixing shades together while using it. Don't know much about makeup, but that's what Zoe said when she found a kit on her bed and was crying. I told my wife, and she said she'd ask Sloane to apologize, but I got Zoe a lock after I found she was moving valuable belongings out the house because of this incident. Sammy and his daughters saw the lock and weren't happy, and the girls were extremely upset. Sammy asked about it, and I straight up told him, but he said, my daughters aren't thieves. It's normal that girls of the same age borrow each other's stuff. Then he said Zoe could easily get another makeup kit for $15 from Walmart, and shouldn't even be buying expensive adult makeup in the first place, and suggested my wife take care of this defect in Zoe's personality trying to appear older than she is. Then he accused me of being overprotective and babying Zoe with this level of enablement. I told him this is between me and my wife, but she shamed me for putting a lock on Zoe's door for her cousins to see and preventing them from spending time with her, saying I was supposed to treat them like daughters. Then she demanded I remove it, but I said this lock does not get removed till her brother and his daughters are out of our house. She got mad I was implying we kick them out and said her family will hate me for this. So I reminded her that I let Sammy's family move in, which is something her own family refused to do. So she should start with shaming/blaming them for not taking their own son and nieces/granddaughters in. If it wasn't for her family's unwillingness to help, we wouldn't be dealing with this much disturbance at home. Now everyone's been giving me and Zoe silent treatment, and my wife is very much upset over this. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. Don't back down. You are the only one sticking up for Zoe. If her cousins want to use expensive makeup, give them your wife's. I guarantee she won't appreciate sharing anymore. They need to start behaving like appreciative guests. I love this idea. Not today, LOP. You have your daughter's back and totally get her need for privacy and autonomy over her stuff. I'm disgusted that her own mother isn't more supportive. Please lend some wife's makeup to the twins, because obviously it's what girls do, isn't it? They love to borrow and use each other's stuff. Without asking. Not. Bonus if Opie goes into Sammy's room to borrow things without asking. Underwear, an expensive watch or something. Returning it with visible wear and tear. Not today, Hull. Your wife harbors someone who tells you that Zoe has a defect in her personality for buying an expensive makeup kit? That's the kind of thing that has people thinking about divorce. Exactly. As a mother myself, I cannot fathom how any mother would let someone treat their child like that, even if it's his family. That would have bought them a one-way ticket out of my front door. If your kid can't count on you to protect them, who can they count on? Not today, Hull. Not today, Hull. Your daughter doesn't feel like she has any privacy or respect in her own home, and you gave her a lock to give her back her privacy. You tried talking to your wife, your brother-in-law, and your nieces, and that got you nowhere. If your daughter has to accept 3 additional adults living in her home, they need to accept her very reasonable boundaries with not taking and ruining her things. Good for you showing your daughter you respect and support her. They are 18. This is 100% vindictive. Mixing and destroying a new palette and leaving it on Zoe's bed screams of malice. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for abandoning my roommate because her mother ate my lunch? My 23 male roommate's 22 female, mother 42 female, has been heavily overstepping and consuming all the food that I cook for my meals when I'm going to work. For context, her mother is also technically a roommate as we split the rent 3 ways. with me paying half and her daughter paying a quarter each. To get her mother to agree to pay half of her rent, my roommate, a longtime friend from college, begged me to let her mother on the lease, as this was the only way she'd agree because she wouldn't pay for something that wasn't hers, and so now her mother comes and goes as she pleases. The problem arises because I cook and I'm fairly good at it. I'd have to because my workplace is isolated and there are no restaurants nearby that I could make it to on my hour for lunch. I wake up at 6 a.m. to make sure that my meals are ready, because I'm a picky eater and the things I like are fairly complicated. Now, roommate's mom has been serving herself for my meals. It started small, and I was okay with that because I sometimes have leftovers. However, certain dishes do not permit that, and now she has taken to eating out of my packed lunches when there's no leftovers, saying, "Sorry, I was just so pickish." Or, "You know how I love your cooking? I couldn't help myself." After the second week of no lunches, I had enough and decided I would leave and pay off my part of the lease. I'm furious, but I do love my roommates as she's like a sister to me. She has recently found out that I'm looking for a new apartment, but thinks my reason is too petty. She said it's just food and I shouldn't abandon her over it. I have been having second thoughts about leaving now because I don't want to hurt her, but her mother is still doing it after having myself and her daughter confront her. Would I be wrong for leaving? Definitely not, Day-Hole. A grown woman can't help herself and so she has to eat your packed lunches? Good grief, how bad is her impulse control? More likely, she respects you so little. It is so selfish she just doesn't give a damn if you're hungry or not. She feels entitled to the food. If your roommate can't even recognize how rude that is and stop her mom, then honestly, she deserves to be abandoned. Though if she's a real friend, she'll understand and continue to socialize with you after you're out. My money's on she's not a real friend though. I'm hoping my roommate will remain my friend and understand, but the comments here are really solidifying my decision. Her mother doesn't even get mad when I confront her. She just laughs it off and does it again. I'm really just tired at this point, but I will miss my roomie if our relationship suffers because of this. Not Day-Hole. You weren't looking to kick them out. You were looking for your own place where you no longer have to worry about people crossing your boundaries. Her mom knows exactly what she's doing when she has eaten the lunch you have prepared for yourself the next day. Her daughter may not understand and thinks it's a selfish reason, but it's a valid reason. What starts out as food will turn into something else. She's eating all your food and borrowing/taking all your things, and you'll be petty for being upset over it. This has also been a worry of mine. It started with the leftovers, but has escalated to my packed lunches. I don't believe her mother would ever steal from me, but I worry she may start feeling entitled to my food and start pressuring me to cook for her as well. She can't see how this is wrong and boundary stomping? It is enough reason to leave her. She has no concept of how to treat other people. She herself is a very good friend to me and has never done anything like this. Her mother is also a very sweet lady most of the time. Except for this, it really was a perfect living situation. Which is why I think it's so hard for me to make this decision myself. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting off the lease and leaving my roommate to fend for herself? Okay, I know the title seems bad, but hear me out. My friend female 19 and I female 19 decided to move in together this May. We've known each other for more than a decade, and I consider her one of my best friends. We always talked about living together, and 2 months ago we got an opportunity and made it into reality. We signed a 1-year lease on a 2-bedroom apartment not too far from our college and jobs. Well, yesterday she comes into my room and says she wants to talk to me about something. She reveals the actual reason for her moving out of her parents' house was because she's pregnant. Her dad is the type of guy that thinks if you're grown enough to have relations, then you're grown enough to live on your own. Not under his roof type of guy. Anyways, I had a load of questions. And eventually she revealed that she was almost 5 months along, and her boyfriend was moving in, and I was livid. She said it would be good for us because the rent will be cheaper, which is true, but that's not why I was mad. I realized she knew before signing the lease and didn't think to mention she was pregnant and moving someone else in. I'm sorry, but I did not sign up to be living in an apartment with some man and a baby. The main reason I moved out of my own home was because I'm the oldest of 4 younger siblings. There was too much going on at home, and I thought moving out I would finally have my peace. After we talked, we both went to our own rooms. And after a couple hours, I called to talk to her again and made up my mind that I do not want to live here anymore because of the obvious circumstance. She got mad as expected, but most of all because she doesn't have much savings and was planning to rely on my share of the rent to stay afloat while she's on leave. I've already talked to the landlord about paying to break myself from the lease. I'm sorry, but I did not sign up for this. She claims there was no contract for not getting pregnant, but there is a contract in place for us, the lease. But I feel like that's common sense when you're living with someone. I feel like an awful friend because I'm not being supportive, but this isn't what I agreed to. I can see why she would be upset with me because of my sudden decision to move with 1 month notice. Especially since she doesn't have much savings and is expecting a baby soon. On the other hand, she should have been honest with her intentions of starting a family because I would have said no to moving in. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. She didn't tell you before for a reason. She knew you wouldn't agree to it, and now wants to guilt trip you into staying? Not the a-hole. Also, if you were so good friends to move in together, why did she not talk to you about being pregnant and then later ranting about her dad kicking her out? Also, the boyfriend moving in without landlord approval, which sounds like she never was going to do, may get you all evicted since the lease is only for 2 people. Not the a-hole. She was sneaky. Did not disclose her motives or situation. You were not obligated in any way. Right. I'm sure she was counting on Opie for rent money and help with the baby. All without asking. The entitlement. Not the a-hole. I wouldn't want to live with a newborn either, and she was being deceptive. Boyfriend can make up the rent difference, especially as he'll be living there anyways. Unless he's jobless. Last story. Am I the a-hole for packing my roommate's things and leaving them in the hall while she was at work? So my best friend has been living with me for months since her parents threw her out. At first things were fine, but slowly started to change. She has mental illnesses, which I appreciate and understand, but she went off her medication, stating she could not afford the co-pays, which didn't make sense to me as she could afford to eat out nearly every night. Eventually, going off the meds turned her into a different person. She would drop her insulin needles on the floor, and no matter how many times I reminded her not to as I have a cat, she just said she either didn't notice or forgot because she's spacey. I'm not checking for dust with a white glove, but this is my home, and the place was constantly trashed. She never did her own dishes, left trash everywhere, and have eaten food in the fridge for weeks. It got so bad, I either had to clean up her messes or deal with roaches. There would be many days that she would be in an awful mood, and I could do no right. If I gave her space, I was ignoring her and hated her. If I tried to talk to her, I was nagging and pestering. Eventually, I got fed up. I had tried over and over to have a conversation with her and ask for just minor changes. Get back on your meds, stop taking out your bad moods on me, and for the love of God, just clean up. We have roaches. Her paranoia had gotten so bad that she accused me of being her online boyfriend and catfishing her for over 8 months. Finally, one night, when she was in a particularly bad mood, she crossed a line regarding my cat. I simply could not take it anymore. She worked 12 to 7, and last week when she left, I called a friend. We packed everything she owned as nicely as we could and stacked it all in the hallway. I then blocked her and everything, locked my door and waited. She got home, saw her things, and threw a fit. She was banging on the door for over 3 hours. I did not leave or even respond as I didn't think there was anything to say. Eventually, she called her parents and went back there. At the time, it seemed like the best, cleanest, and safest way to do this, but some of my other friends think I was too harsh, and I should have given her more time or another ultimatum. I hate hurting people and feel awful, but I was ready to check myself into the psych ward, and I couldn't handle that line ever being crossed again. So Reddit. Am I the a-hole? Edit. There seem to be 2 questions popping up. One is what I did was perfectly lawful where I live as she was not in my lease, had never received mail and did not pay rent, so therefore was not considered a legal resident. If anything, I could have gotten in trouble for having her there. 2 is I did give her an ultimatum of a month, where she needed to have made a visible effort in getting better, and not only did that not happen and no change was even attempted, but she also crossed that line with my cat. She was aware this was a possibility as I did not do this with 0 warning. Not the a-hole. This was not a knee-jerk reaction. You gave her plenty of warnings, ultimatums, and leeway. This was a last resort after you tried everything else. You do not need to feel any guilt for looking out for yourself. Not Day-ho. I bet the friends are saying that because she might come knocking at one of their doors next. And they don't want to take her in either. The nuance is that they know she's back with her parents. So these friends aren't even worried about that. They're expecting Opie to bend over backwards just so they don't have to deal with the drama of Opie's best friend complaining. It's the easiest thing in the world to be generous in somebody else's dime and labor. Depending on where you live, what you did might be an unlawful eviction. You did say she had been there for months. However, legalities aside, you did the best thing for you. And for your cat. Not Day-ho. I looked into the laws where I live beforehand. She was not on my lease, had never received mail here and therefore was not technically a tenant. If anything, I could have gotten in trouble as my lease states one person living here. Where we live states that simply putting any amount of floor space aside for someone's personal belongings constitutes a right to tenancy. It is nuts. My BFF went through hell recently with her husband's cousin, and this was a concern. She is the salt of the earth. She and hubby had a cousin come out to work in their business. We're going to pay for his commercial road license, and we're not asking for rent, knowing what that would mean. The cousin blew the opportunity, and I think it was on heroin. Anyhow, they had to give him the boot, and she was terrified he was going to try to stay based on the fact that he had a spot in the office for his gear. It pays to know the laws. Not Day-ho. You tried to do something nice for your friend and got burnt for it. You gave her plenty of warnings, and she decided to ignore them. That is on her. Plus, it sounds like she was a danger to your cat. The friends who say you were too harsh should be able to offer her a room in their homes or pay for some nights in a hotel. Should be easy to do from up on their high horses.